Welcome to Fitness Casual. We help you ditch diets and build habits no matter how busy you are. I'm Andrew Hayes, and with me is the low on supplements, Kat Best. I actually don't know what you take. I'm going to guess low.
The lowest it's kind of ever been in the past decade, that's for sure.
Great.
I used to go hard.
You don't have that, like,
enthusiast.
You don't have the row of like the Monday through Sunday pills that I see some of the influencers like, here's all the supplements that I take. And I was like, that seems like a lot of money wasted, but okay.
If you go on the supplement subreddit, there's people who just upload their stack. And it's just like a cupboard full, and they're like, rate my stack. And then I'm like, I love to see what people say, but yeah, it's kind of wild what people will take with no idea what they're taking.
Oh yeah, and there's so many claims of products that do this too, like drinks, teas, bars, whatever. What's like the craziest one you've seen recently?
Lately, I see this a lot on TikTok, but it's like a or anti-cortisol drink. It's like, if you drink this, like, you won't have a puffy face. Cortisol face, I think, is the thing people say. And it's definitely on the piggyback of like beauty, all for like the girlies who do their skin and like all these things. But, it's just, this drink of like, you drink this and it will lower your cortisol. And I'm like, that's unbelievable. I wish it worked. Yep. We would all be drinking it. They would be multimillionaires, but unfortunately, probably doesn't do much.
I feel like sometimes it just has to make sense. Like, you just have to stop and ask yourself, like, I'm so stressed, I'm burnt out, I'm running around doing a million things at once. Like, is this drink really going to solve all those problems? So I feel bad. I've been in poor states where I'm a little more like open to being deceived, but I think sometimes it sounds crazy a little bit.
Yeah. But on the other hand, I think we respect marketing. Business is trying to be a business. True. And they're just trying to make something sellable. So I think something that perhaps has a vitamin that could help with cortisol then just turns into like, this is your anti-cortisol drink, where it's like, we went from something that could mildly help to like, this is the solution. And that is all marketing and influencer stuff. And it's unfortunate, but that's the business. And
that's was going to be my answer, is all the energy drinks. I think Celsius is the boldest. I mean, Celsius, like half their can is all of the miracle solutions with like burns body fat and increases metabolism. And you're like, what? But all of those like Bang and Rain Body Fuel, they pay influencers who are in really, I'm quoting again, good shape because they look the part, which we've talked about enough on many episodes of like, that doesn't mean anything. But they look really fit, and so they're like, well, Rain Body Fuel helps me do that. And I think common sense needs to take place here. Like, if you are struggling with losing weight or something like that, I don't think that drinking a Celsius every day is going to be the magic solution. In fact, there's really never any one magic solution, which is why we're going to do the most common supplements today, and I think touch generally on the role that supplements should have, because it's often, I think they're overemphasized their importance in a healthy 100%. Lifestyle.
No supplement, no drink, no powder, no nothing will burn fat. Don't care. Not possible. Not how anything works. It might get you cracked out, and the caffeine will give you a buzz, but you're not burning fat while that's happening.
Yeah, just to close the loop on that, I have done posts on this because I do like Celsius. It's my drink on the golf course. First of all, they were sued for that claim, and I think they should take it off the can personally, but like, I'm not, I don't work in CPG regulation. I don't know, but yes, generally speaking, what they're trying to get at, whether it's true or not, is that they are going to increase your NEAT and your movement, maybe increase your heart rate and get you running around and doing stuff. And so if you feel tired and you have no interest in the gym, and then you pound a Celsius and you go work out, like, I give you 2 thumbs up for that, as long as it's not affecting your sleep or, your blood pressure or your stress or something. But drinking it and then sitting at your desk, and, if you're like, I just picture the Wall Street guys who like pound Red Bull all day is the archetype. That's not going to help you burn fat. It might just make your problem worse. So just, paired with proper diet and lifestyle changes, I do think caffeine can be an effective tool, but it's not a cure-all.
Definitely. All right. So supplements is a gigantic topic. It's like absolutely massive. So we're going to touch upon things, but not get into all the fine details, because that's impossible for 1 hour. So just know, if you're really curious, you could research a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about. But supplements are a $40 billion industry in the United States. And yet, Americans are more obese than ever before. We are unhealthier than ever. We are stressed mentally. You know, we're having issues there more than ever before. So while Americans pound supplements, seems to not be having that big of an impact overall. So why do people even take supplements to begin with? Well, nearly 90% of Americans don't meet daily vitamin and mineral needs from food alone. 90%. That is absolutely gigantic. And I would say a big part of that is people don't know what their food needs are. They have absolutely no idea what to eat. And, you know, no one's ever taught this. You kind of just have to figure out on your own if you're curious. But this shows that, like, the standard American diet obviously has a lot of issues, but it's these gaps in the diet that supplements then can come to fill. It's a humongous opportunity for supplement brands to create things or create blends or all of these products that just fill these gaps. So someone goes, oh, I need that. I don't have that. Or, oh, I want, you know, heart health a little bit better, so I got to take that thing. We can, when you see the benefits of supplements, anyone could justify taking them. Like, you really could. I have taken so many, and I would say a lot of them had purpose at the time, but as I've gotten more educated, understand functional health better, I would say I take less supplements, but when I do, I have to know exactly why I'm taking it, and I focus on for 3 months at a time. Like, I just have a lot more purpose, so it's not super random. And sometimes I'll stop taking something and forget it ever happened. Like, nothing changes. Right. This has happened a lot with me. I would say I'm kind of interested in biohacking. I find this stuff fun. Sometimes taking a supplement just to try to improve something, get an edge for the sake of that is fun for me. So that's where, like, I have kind of a passion for this topic, but I also have a certification in dietary supplements to understand a lot about finding the right ones, you know, sourcing, all of that stuff to make sure at least the ones you're taking are safe. So that's the biggest thing here is like, you have to be taking ones that are good quality, and nobody knows what that even means. But I also want to reiterate, like, a supplement is not a magic pill, but they can be helpful if you consider purpose and quality in your diet. You know, I think using the right supplements are definitely worth it, and they do have a place for everybody, but you can be very reckless and moving without intention when it comes to trying supplements. This can also lead to issues if people are taking a lot of supplements that are poor quality, or they're taking things they don't need because their friend's doing it, or they went to Costco and saw the giant bottle of fish oil and they bought that because they're like, ooh, what a good deal. I'm sorry, but for supplements, if it's cheap, probably not good. And that's, you know, one thing I'm going to get into, but people get themselves into all sorts of situations just because there's really no guidance to go to when it comes to this stuff. And supplements should be added to an already solid foundation of whole foods, movement, managing your stress. If you are not addressing the underlying factors, supplements might actually be a waste. They might not be doing all that much for you. I think the way I've explained it to people is if we're looking at like a wedding cake and there's a bunch of tiers, supplements are that top layer, that teeny tiny one up top, and then everything else is underneath that matters more. So if you're not addressing the big things, but you think taking like some B vitamins is going to all of a sudden get you in shape and burn fat, like no possible way. But if you're already doing the right things and you are deficient, then it could actually help you. So what to look for in a quality supplement. Supplements are not FDA regulated, which means they can put anything they want in there, they can lie on the bottle, and you're never going to know about it. So we want to get supplements that are third-party tested. Third-party testing is when an independent lab that is not affiliated with the brand in any way, they're not being paid to do this study, they're not affiliated whatsoever, test the product to make sure that it has what it says it has on the label, and there's nothing harmful actually in there. I would never buy a supplement that hasn't been third-party tested. So, you know, if someone sends me a random link on Amazon and goes, what do you think of this magnesium? That's the first thing I look for. I don't really care. I don't know every brand in the world. There's so many. That would be impossible. But I look for third-party testing that seems legit. So you can look on a label also for it kind of will specify. There's like NSF certified, USP verified, Informed Choice or Consumer Lab. Those are things that will indicate it is third-party tested. You could go look it up online to see what it says. Consumer Lab I like because they also will give supplements like a rating. Like if you go in their category of, all right, tell me all the vitamin D's they've tested, they'll give you like A, B, C, D, F. It's fun to look at the absolute failures because you see them at CVS and whatnot.
Yep.
But you need to be looking for those things and at least consider that. If you don't want to do any other research to see the quality of a supplement, at least look for like third-party verification. Most of them that I see that are, around like good quality brands like Thorne, they go through this. And then if you know it's a good quality brand, you kind of have to worry less. But if you're just trying to find the cheapest thing out there, might not be verified. And I think this is really important. Supplements will have heavy metals, mold, contaminants. They can have some really gnarly stuff in there. And that's because, they're not tested. That's also why it's a $40 billion industry. People can just make a product. I could go make a supplement tomorrow and get it out there pretty soon and put God knows what in it and still sell it. And
We've always talked about Kat not doing that for that reason.
Yeah.
And the heavy metals thing, just by the way, is incredibly studied and published in all kinds. Go look it up. I know it sounds like another tinfoil hat conspiracy, but it's in everything, including protein powder, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, like lead. There's a lot of lead issues also with things. And it is, it is tricky. And there's just so much information out there, but, use your best judgment and at least try to look that up. So that's what I want you to look for. Next thing here, and this is what I would say most people don't know unless you're kind of like nerding out on supplements, is you need to find the most bioavailable form. Your body cannot use what it can't absorb, and poor quality supplements will contain ingredients that are harder for your body to absorb, which can lead to little to no impact. If you're taking something and your body absorbs 5% of it, don't bother. Not worth it. And this is usually the cost difference when it comes to supplements. A really common one is folate. So if you're having a supplement, you want it to have methylfolate. A lot of them will have folic acid. Methylfolate is more bioavailable. So if you go look at whatever supplement you're taking, especially a multivitamin, if it has folic acid, not the best form to take. Your body will not absorb it fully. If you're going to spend money on supplements, you should just buy the good quality ones because you'll absorb it more. Even vitamin D3, it's more bioavailable in an oil-based formulation instead of a capsule. And it requires fat for absorption. So the one I recommend for all our supplements, which I'll get into a little bit, it is emulsified in oil, so it's better to be absorbed. It's like a liquid droplet you put on the tongue, much better than a capsule form. So actually the form of the supplement itself could determine how well it gets absorbed in your body. And magnesium is a really good one. Magnesium glycinate is much better than magnesium oxide. Magnesium, there's a bunch of different kinds. I think somewhere between like 8 to 11 different types. A lot of people will go to the store, pick the cheapest one on the shelf, and take it. I'm sure it's a magnesium oxide, not that, it's not being absorbed by your body. So just doing a little bit of research, trying to figure that out. That's something you could totally message me on Instagram or email us if you're curious, because this is a whole podcast of its own talking about bioavailability, but I don't think many people are aware of this, but those are important things to look for. And then we have the ingredients list. I don't think many people realize supplements have other ingredients in them besides just the vitamin you're taking. It takes a lot from it to go to a vitamin or mineral into a capsule, into something your body can absorb. Like, we need a lot of stuff going on. So you want to make sure you look at the ingredients labels. There should definitely be no sugar, no artificial sweeteners or dyes. Anything that's red or colorful, like that's a dye in there. No reason that needs to be in there. Hydrogenated oils, you will find those in supplements. Talc, titanium dioxide, like these are not good things in your supplements, so these are things to look for. There is more than I just listed, but when it comes to like fillers or whatever's in there, there can be some pretty junky stuff. So important to look at. That's also more research online will help you get more clarity of what to look for. But the ingredients list should be short. Proprietary blends are tricky. This is on a lot of supplements, so I want to mention it. This is a way for manufacturers to hide the exact dosages of each ingredient. So we have this proprietary fat-burning blend, and we named it like whatever. And you now don't know what's in that blend because it's a secret. It could be great. It could be nothing. That's where it gets a little murky. I don't think that necessarily means it's wrong, but I think it's something to pay attention to if there's no other information what's on there. Very common in fat burners, greens powders, or cheap multivitamins, a lot of powders, or something that's very specific to the brand, they will use proprietary blends. And I would say that's like a yellow flag, not something not to have, but you should look deeper into what's actually on there. Sometimes if you go on their website, you'll be able to see like what the breakdown is, but that's also what they're telling you. Who knows what it actually is? But that's just one thing to look for, to be aware of. And then I also think in a quality supplement, it should not be a trend. Trend is a little popular these days because I think people would say Athletic Greens is a trend, colostrum, Armor colostrum, these are trends, but they're just like, there's a lot of money behind them building up over time, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily bad. But a true trend of something that's like only backed by, you know, an influencer like Kim Kardashian, her tea that she had for a while, like things, or like the cortisol drink I was talking about earlier, like those I would say are like very much trendy things where a few years from now, people won't be talking about them. Where the basics stay. The basics have been around for a while, they will be relevant for a while, and they will stand the test of time as things people need. I don't think any new drink or supplement or product is going to come out that's going to really be revolutionary. I think we've kind of figured that out by now. Maybe, you know, technology is always advancing, things get better and better. I'm sure like new things will come, but I just don't think it's going to be super massive. You know, there's no anti-aging pill in a bottle. It's about to come out. Like anti-aging actually is probably a key word that annoys me. You know, that's a rough one there, but again, if it's super trendy or you only know about it because you get the TikTok ad 10 times a day, doesn't mean it's something you need to buy. You know, pay attention to marketing and use your discernment. You need to do research, do the third-party testing, look for quality. Gummy vitamins, I think, is a huge one right now.
Yep, I was just going to say that.
Grunes or whatever the vegetable in a gummy is. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, well, so there's... I like to say, to your point about what's tried and true, we see minor improvements over time. And I think that's a good sign. Again, always, you know, do your research just because it's a reputable brand. But I think electrolytes is a big one. Gatorade's been around for a really long time. I don't hate Gatorade. You know, I give it to my kids sometimes if they have like a stomach virus or there's nothing else around. But we've also learned that Gatorade just has way too much sugar. And so you see the rise of like the powders, the tablets, electrolyte drinks that don't have sugar. I think that's like a good improvement on a supplement that's been pretty much proven to have some level in your diet. Creatine is another one, been around for a long time, even more popular now. Now you have the gummies because many people, including myself, are really bad at remembering to take it every day. And so having a gummy is an improvement there. I personally have not looked into those yet, Kat, on just like the bioavailability, the quality, the third-party testing, all of that. I'm not sure, but to me, that seems like a logical progression of something that's been around, as opposed to your point of like, here's a TikTok trend. You take this like weird, you know, tree root that no one's heard of, and it's going to make all your headaches go away. Like that just seems like a pretty big leap when we've been studying food and nutrition for a really long time.
Yeah, for sure. And back to the gummies, one thing to keep in mind is these do have sugar. So if you're willing to sacrifice eating sugar to get whatever, I think that's okay. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the worst thing in the world, but, you know, I think that's just something to be aware of. And also, a lot of times in gummy form, you have to take a lot. I know the creatine ones, you have to take like 6 to 8 gummies to get 5 grams. It's expensive when you could just put like a clear powder in your drink. But for people who like to eat sugar, it could be, you know, an easy thing to add in. But I think it does get tricky there. But I just can't really get behind the vegetable gummies. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure.
There is a rabbit hole that we won't really go down today, but that is also how a lot of these supplements need other vitamins, nutrients, whatever, to be properly absorbed.
Yes.
And so in terms of like ingredients list, sometimes there are things in there on purpose. But it's also a good thing to remember, just because someone has isolated this thing for you, maybe taking it in a supplement form isn't actually going to give you that benefit. And so we'll cover some of our favorites. But again, always food first when you can, for that reason.
Yeah, always food first, or at least be aware. Like I've talked about before, I take a fish oil because I don't need enough omega-3s. I don't need enough salmon. I don't eat sardines. It's not really happening, and I just take a supplement because I think that's, you know, a pretty straightforward one to take, and it's going to be on one of our top 5.
That's right.
So
let's do it.
Top 5 that I'm about to go over are actually based on how the ones we recommend most for our clients. I figured that's kind of like the best gauge to use because these are the ones I see people actually legitimately need the most. My approach, I talked about how I used to be really into supplements. It's not something I've ever really put on clients before of taking a bunch, but if you go into the world of like functional medicine, whatever, supplements are massive as a solution because these people have less control over your dietary intake. So when you go to a functional medicine doctor, often they're not giving you macros, looking at your food logs, paying attention to your mood and everything every day, but they will give you a boatload of supplements to help things. I think a lot of people see good results from it, but I don't do things that way. I like to go by blood work, see what's deficient, and then I like to just do the minimum need possible and focus on food. Food goes a really long way. Sometimes people are also supplements enthusiasts, like they just want to take things, so we could get a little creative, but I am certainly never pushing supplements on people unless I think it's like you legitimately need this. That's probably the only time you're going to hear from me. So if you're a client listening, you're probably going to be like, oh, I'm familiar with these few, and then I haven't mentioned any others. But if you ever wanted to like do a deeper dive, we can, there's a lot out there. You could do a lot of research for yourself, but these top 5 are most recommended. So starting with a vitamin D-K supplement. 42% of US adults are deficient in vitamin D, which is massive. I feel like it's more. I'm just going to say, I feel like 42.
Personal experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's more. A huge percentage of people in our coaching program have low vitamin D, have either had it for a long time, actually been supplementing, never goes up. So this is what's kind of interesting is like there are people who legitimately are supplementing every day and their vitamin D maybe gets a little bit higher, but they're still in deficient range, which is unfortunate. And it's kind of like what's going on there, but usually goes back to quality. So why vitamin D is important, plays a huge role in energy, metabolism, hormones, your bone health, your mood, immune health. Like I would say everything vitamin D kind of touches in some way. It's very easy to test with blood work, which is why I think we clearly know a lot of people are deficient because it's a very straightforward blood test to do. Usually if it's below 30, I would say that's most lab ranges are kind of around there that you would be deficient. But for me, if anyone's kind of hovering around there, like if you're 31, 32, like you might as well be deficient because you're like right on that edge. So I like people to be pretty nicely in a sufficient range for us not to supplement.
Especially because it can vary by season. So if you got your blood work taken in the summer, that might be your absolute peak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And low vitamin D will not resolve itself unless it is addressed. Like I really don't think it will. And low vitamin D will absolutely wreak havoc over time in the body. There's definitely a correlation between people who struggle to lose weight, having low vitamin D, having more issues with disease or illness, immune function with low vitamin D. That was a huge thing. And your gut health can impact absorption. Your gut health is massive for absorption. So if people have poor gut health, but they're taking vitamin D every day, not getting any better, I think it's an opportunity to look at the gut health there. But one thing I think a lot of people don't know that is becoming more mainstream now is that if you take a vitamin D, you have to have it with a vitamin K. K2 specifically. Vitamin K2 tells your body where to put calcium, and it says put it in the bones, not in the arteries. If you take vitamin D without vitamin K, you could end up with buildup in your arteries, which is not good. So you want to take with vitamin K. I will never give someone a vitamin D that doesn't have vitamin K in it. And I've taken people off of ones to give them one. So that's just something to look for. You want a vitamin D3 specifically. And for the K2, you want it to be this type. It's called MK7. I'm only mentioning that because that's the best one to take for absorption and bioavailability. And ideally, oil-based or a liquid is really good to drop on the tongue. I would say that could be better than a capsule. And somewhere between 1,000 IUs to 5,000 IUs in general. There are people who will take like a 50,000 IU once a month. I know that's a strategy. The people I know are still deficient, so I don't exactly know, but that is a strategy. I'm not as familiar with that, but I know if someone's really deficient, I'll give them 5,000 IUs or somewhere in that range. But most of the vitamin Ds will be kind of in that general vicinity, but you just don't want to be taking too little also because you might not be getting the benefits you need if you're truly deficient.
All right.
Okay, so next we have fish oil. I'm on fish oil. A lot of people take fish oil. This has omega-3 fatty acids, which the most important ones are DHA and EPA. And I mention that because if you go to get a supplement and it does not say DHA or EPA, it's probably not a good quality one, or I don't know exactly what's in there, but that's what you want to be looking for as the active omega-3s. Omega-3s are really powerful for inflammation, pain management, your skin health, your brain, heart health. The impacts and benefits of taking fish oil have been proving over and over again. You know, this is a really popular one. I think this is a fantastic one for a lot of people to take because I think most people are probably, you know, on the more deficient side of this. This is just a hard one to get in. It really is. You know, even if you eat a lot of salmon, it still can be pretty hard. So I think this is one that works for most people. Also, to balance out omega-3s to omega-6s, this can be, you know, really beneficial. These are on the pricier side, but they should be, because fish oil, when it's a bad quality one, it can be incredibly toxic. So this is my public service announcement. Nobody knows this. This is really important. I find myself constantly having this conversation with people, and I didn't learn this until I went to holistic nutrition school. Like, this never crossed my radar, and I was pretty mind blown when I learned this. It's actually really disturbing. Fish oil can go rancid, and it's a huge issue. It can be harmful, actually. It can cause inflammation, and a good analogy is like brushing your teeth with sugar if you're taking a poor quality fish oil. So if you have a fish oil that's open and it's in your cupboard and it's been there for 3 years and you're like, I'm going to take it again, do not throw that out, restart. But this is what happens. So when fish oil supplements are either exposed to oxygen or heat, things that it starts to break down, it oxidizes, then it goes rancid, becomes toxic. So that's the process that happens. So you want to make sure your fish oil is not exposed to really high heat. So keep it in the fridge. I keep it in the fridge because it's dark and it's cold. So it's pretty safe in there once you open it. Before you open it, doesn't need to be there, but I still would put mine in there just to be safe. You also want to make sure, you know, it's not under intense heat and light over time. If you have a bottle, 2 years later, it's not going to be the same. Fish oil really can break down. It is not very robust. It is actually quite sensitive. So are cooking oils, but I'm not going to get there. But everything I'm saying kind of applies to, some sort of cooking oils and stuff. But a quality fish oil should have no taste or no odor. So if you open the bottle and it actually smells like fish, it's not good. My fish oil never smells like fish. I don't taste fish when I taste it. I also don't burp up fish. I know that's a thing people find. Ugh. I've never had that issue, but I know that's a thing. Some of them can have like a lemon flavor added to it to help. But either way, if you open this and you're like, damn, that smells, like, throw it out. Something is wrong. Like, that is not a good sign. So be careful. Keep it in the fridge, you know, and don't let it sit around for years unopened. Now, I'm not going to say Costco fish oil or cod liver or whatever oils they have. I'm not going to say they're bad, but I would not buy mine from there. That's all I'm going to say. I would be very skeptical of buying giant bottles of any oil type supplement. I think with other things, it's safer, but when it comes to these, I think you need to be very careful. It should come in a bottle also that is either, you know, completely solid in a color, but it can't be see-through, or really dark, but it shouldn't be see-through. You shouldn't, because then light can get in there and that can help it oxidize. So, you know, just be careful there. I would say, of all things when it comes to quality fish oil or any type of, you know, cod oil, whatever, that's extra, extra important. And you can also get liquids, not just capsules, but the same thing applies. If it has a smell, has an odor, no good. Buy a new one.
We do have a resource that we'll plug at the end of this too about where to get some of these stuff and some of the brands we recommend. As Kat mentioned, there's too many for us to stay on top of, but we do have some of our favorites. And I just want to say this is one of my personal favorites for you, Kat, because you have such a clean diet, and I think you have been on a journey, and you're an amazing coach. But you also are very much the gold standard for a lot of people who look up to you, and you're like, I don't get enough omega-3. So
yeah, no way.
I think it's really important to remind, like, sometimes these are necessary. I think I might even have you beat in this category. We make fish probably 2 to 3 times a week, and I will just say for parents out there, fish is such an easy thing to cook. I mean, we get salmon, we get the frozen stuff, we get it delivered, and like you put it in if you remember to defrost it, 10 minutes in the oven, you're done. Lemon, salt, you know, that's it. Tastes great. Or you can even cook it. I've cooked it from frozen, usually in the pan with like foil on top or something. There's lots of ways to do it. I think fish is such a good hack to put into your diet. And I think there's so many different kinds. Not all of them are omega-3, but just because you don't like swordfish doesn't mean that you don't, want to eat salmon or cod or something like that. We do fish tacos. Like, there's just so many ways to incorporate this into your diet. So I do think this supplement is probably necessary, but this is a good one where it could be worth reevaluating your protein choices in a given week, because switching to fish, it just has so many benefits for you.
Yeah, I totally agree. You should always be striving also to like fill that gap with food when you can't. But for people who just aren't going to, or have no idea where to start, or just have a lot of inflammation in general or pain, I think fish oil could also be a good one. Good for athletes too. It's actually good for brain health. They show good benefits of concussions, especially in youth athletes, of taking fish oil for helping their brain health. So There's a lot of like cool stuff when it comes to that.
I kind of look at flaxseed as my omega-3 supplement. I just usually ground flaxseed goes in something every day, breakfast or smoothie or whatever, and that's a good way to just get it from food.
But flaxseed is not DHA or EPA.
That's right.
It's ALA.
You're right.
So it is an omega-3, but that's the other type of omega-3s.
That's a good point.
But this is when we could break down fatty acids all day long. Oh my God.
No one wants that episode. We won't.
Okay. Next one we have is creatine. Big fan. This is one I think I get the most questions about. Like, should I take it? Should I not? I think this is one right now. It's absolutely having a moment. There was some study about creatine for women that just blew up, and now it's everywhere. I'm glad. I'm excited. I've been taking creatine for a long time. People used to look at me like I was disgusting. 10 years ago when I would take it, they're like, but you're a girl. Why do you want to get bulky? And I'm like, it's not how it works. But we know creatine is one of the most researched supplements in existence. It is by far incredibly safe. Like, they have, tested it every which way possible. Benefits are really clear. Supports muscle strength, recovery, but it really helps your body create more energy. Helps your body with ATP production. So if you take creatine, you will be able to like squeeze out one more rep, maybe run a little bit faster, go a little bit longer. It's not a steroid. Okay, you're not about to get jacked right away. We cannot have unrealistic expectations, but it's just going to give you a little bit of an edge or help with recovery. That's why I take it. But I think the new research really on the cognitive benefits of mood and memory and all of this stuff is exciting, because that gives it, or they're telling old people to take creatine now. Anyone could take creatine. Cool. It seems to be, like it really helps with cognitive function in elderly people. It's found naturally in red meat or through other proteins like animal-based proteins, but a lot of people don't get enough through diet alone. I would say especially vegans, vegetarians, they tend to do incredibly well taking a creatine supplement. Like, they're the ones who actually feel a difference pretty quickly, whereas someone like me or you, who we do get enough in our diet, might not be anything major, but I think anyone who's really active also could be taking it. So that's kind of why I do it, to help with recovery. But I'm not thinking my diet's really lacking, but I've just been taking it for a while. It's also very simple to take. Creatine monohydrate is usually unflavored, tasteless, dissolves very well in water. So this is probably one of the easiest things to take. You could mix it in your coffee, in water, like any beverage you want. 5 grams daily. You also don't need to cycle it. You do not need to load in the beginning, like it might say on the bottle if you got it at, Vitamin Shop. They'll say that sometimes. I don't think anyone needs to do that, because if you just take it over time, that'll saturate your body. You would probably feel not the best side effects if you take a lot of it really quickly when your body's not used to it. I would say some people do feel like bloating along those lines. I never do personally, but I take like a good quality one. And one thing to pay attention, you also have to be drinking enough water, big time. If you aren't drinking enough water, you might feel a little bit funky. But if it is giving you a side effect, I would say first play around with the timing of day, or try to bring it more with a meal, or just take it out, try a different kind. There might be you might just not be jiving well with it. But I do notice, I feel like it's something a lot of people used to say, like it makes them bloated, retain water. If you're retaining water, it should be going in the muscle. So you actually should be looking a little bit more full. It's not like sitting in your gut. It's not making you like really bloated from that way. But if you're not digesting it properly, then it could be. So that's also something else to look at. But, I think that's the main side effect people have. But I feel like lately I don't hear about it too much, because there's also so many creatines out there, like good quality ones. to go with. But that's definitely one I think anyone could be taking. I can't think of a time I told someone not to take it when they've asked me, but I also don't tell people you have to take it. I just think it's like a good one if you're into it and you want to try. Why not?
It's also how we met. Fun fact.
Yes, that is true. Shout out creatine. Did you actually want to know, or were you just...
Yeah, probably somewhere in between.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Okay, so number 4, this is the supplement I wish I didn't have to tell so many people to take. Like, I truly actually wish this was not super popular, and this is fiber. I almost didn't want to include it, but I was like, you know what? The majority of our clients take a fiber supplement, so why not mention? Because I do think for people who can't get enough in through their food, this does have a place in the diet, but you really should try to get it in through food. I actually think it's a little bit of a cop-out if you are happy with eating 10 grams of fiber per day and you feel like you have to add all of this supplement to get there. But if you're getting to 20, 22, and you want to like cross that 25 gram threshold of fiber, I think it's okay. If you're already hitting 25 and you want to get to like a little bit more, I also think it's okay. But I think if your diet really sucks, I don't like you adding a fiber supplement until you get there. But it can go a long way for supporting digestion, satiety even, blood sugar regulation, can actually lower cholesterol. Fiber and cholesterol have a really big benefit. And when it comes to a supplement, you kind of don't have many options for fiber. One would be psyllium husk. This is pure soluble fiber. It absorbs water and forms a gel. So this does make it easier for you to poop. So if you're someone who wants to take fiber to help with creating bowel movements, psyllium is a good one to go with because it will help your body pass stool easier. And it does have a lot of benefits for the gut. You know, psyllium also has been heavily tested, a lot of good studies with cholesterol and all of that. So I think that's a good one to try. However, I think we've talked about,
literally
the taste of psyllium. Psyllium is rough. There are gross supplements that kind of try to make it better or flavored, whatever, but it's really sludgy. You have to drink it like really quickly after making it. Maybe you could get away with it being in a smoothie, but it does have a texture. And I wouldn't say it's like not the easiest thing to drink. And that's also why a lot of fiber, like the Metamucil and whatever, they try to make it more palatable by adding a bunch of like processed ingredients into that one. So I'm not a fan of that. But psyllium is the base of that. But if you just go buy like regular psyllium husk, you know, you can make it work. I do think...
I was just going to say, I'm at the point in my life where there's a lot of food that I eat for the health benefits, even though I don't enjoy it. I also drink alcohol. It's, you know, mostly beer at this point, but like I've done shots. I've done gross things I've drank a lot of weird tasting poisons in my life. I have never drank anything as vile as psyllium husk. And so I think it's just to be relatable to the audience. I think just like the way it congeal, everything about it. I think it's one of the few times, like if you really need it, it's okay to have sugar or sweetener or what, just because I really don't think you're going to get it down on a regular basis without that. But it's just all the more reason to try to get off of that if you can. Like in the short term, great, but let's find a way to incorporate it into your diet because you don't want to be either drinking that gross thing every day or drinking that gross thing with a bunch of additives in it every day.
Yeah, exactly. But because fiber is a massive need for the American population, other companies have tried to get a more palatable version out there. So the one we tell a lot of our clients to have is by the brand Thorne. It's called FiberMend. It's not just psyllium husk, it has like prebiotics in there. So it's also good for gut health in general, but it's very gentle on the GI tract, easier to drink. It's not as gritty. A lot of people will just add it to their water or with like an electrolyte or something and they're able to drink it and tolerate it. I get a lot less feedback from that one. But again, I only tell people to add fiber in if I see that over time diet's just not doing it. Like we always give them a chance to get there. If it's not happening, then we add a supplement. For a lot of people, that just makes their life easier. But I would say where it really shines is during travel. Travel is a time where it's just harder to eat fiber because you're not eating as many fresh foods, or maybe you're eating more bars or like packaged stuff to kind of get you through a travel day on the go. Fiber can really dip. It causes people to get constipated. Travel itself can cause a lot of constipation. A lot of people are unhappy when they travel and get really constipated. So if you can just bring your fiber powder with you, a lot of our clients are very happy to have that regularity in their routine. And it actually can really reduce stress because a lot of people also are focused on their bowel movements to make sure they're like having a good day and they're in their routine and they're like feeling good about their body and all of that stuff. So if you just can bring your fiber with you, I think that's fantastic. So if you have one just for travel, but you don't eat it on days you don't use it on days you eat enough, that's also completely fine with me. And I actually think that could be a better use case than having it every day. If I do see people having a fiber supplement every day and now their fiber's at like 40 grams or higher, I'm like, take it out. You don't need it. You're there. Like, save it for days. And then, you know, some people are like, oh, but I don't want to not get enough. I'm like, well, trust yourself that, yep, you know, you're doing the right things and you only need a supplement when you're not getting enough.
Yeah, and you can have too much, and it can affect nutrient absorption. I doubt anyone listening really should be concerned about that. But if you're pounding psyllium husk because you're a health optimizer and you're also eating lots of berries and stuff, then you might just be doing more than you need. So save your money. You know?
I agree.
But that's again, I know it's a supplement episode, but many reasons to try to get it from food first.
For sure. All right, and the last supplement I forgot about. Andrew had to remind me.
It's literally part of your life. Sleeps next to you and your pillow, probably.
Protein powder. This is a supplement and it should be used when you aren't getting enough protein in the diet, but I'm someone who I use mine happily because I enjoy it and it gives me more freedom with my meals. So I'm not eating like meat at breakfast, lunch, dinner. If I need a supplement, I can have it. Or if you're low for the day or you have a really high protein goal, like a lot of men have crazy high protein goals compared to some women, a supplement can go very far. And I would say protein powders have come a massively long way. They're not going to go anywhere. Quality is pretty good these days, but you need to be aware of what you're buying. Third-party testing is definitely a good thing to be looking for. You know, same with the little labels I mentioned earlier. But if you get ones that are, you know, also tested for athletes, because they can't have a lot of banned substances and stuff, if you get ones that have that certification on the front, I think that's a good one to go with, because that means it's been heavily tested in filters. Because, well, fun fact, like athletes who compete in sports that have like strong, like no steroids or no doping policies, any supplement they take has to be vetted. They have to like submit, like, I take this. And usually they don't take supplements because they're afraid of something being in there and then them being tested and being like kicked out of whatever competition. So it's high stakes for athletes to take supplements. So if they're taking it, probably a good one for you to take too. So when it comes to protein powder, we have grass-fed whey protein isolate. I would say that's a really good one to look for. A whey protein concentrate, don't love it. There's usually a lot of other stuff in there. I would say that's the poorest form of whey. Where you'll find this most actually is in those pre-bottled drinks, like the ones that are already bottled up and shaken and all of that. Probably not even in the refrigerated section. Those usually use like the worst types of protein powders. Could be soy plus a whey concentrate or something. I would say soy is also not the best one to have, but if you do a plant-based one, it should be like a blend of something, you know, a bunch of things in there, but you should always be looking for it to just say it's a complete protein with anything plant-based, because they're usually not naturally, but most protein powders catch on to the complete amino acid profile, so I'm sure you won't really run into that. But if you're just getting like brown rice protein powder on its own, it is not complete. So you just want to usually have a blend there. That's one thing to look for. Then we also have egg white protein powder. This is one I don't think many people know exists. But
never tried that.
Yeah, if you don't like dairy or you don't tolerate dairy well, you don't need to go right to plant-based. You could do egg white powder and you could do like a beef isolate. I do a beef isolate. I love my protein powder. I think it tastes fantastic and it's the best quality one I've ever found, and it is derived from beef. So I know I'm getting the good quality ingredients there, but it's not like it has no fat. There's no like saturated fat in there or anything, but it's just the beef. I would say it's the easiest to digest of all of them. Some people do have issues with whey. I have found people who have issues with whey, when we go to a really good quality one, they don't really have that many issues. So I would say, yeah, I think you should try that before you decide whey protein doesn't work for you, is just have a good quality one and maybe blend it up with other things and see how that goes. But if you're just getting like the muscle milk, you know, from the store and you drink that and you get really bloated, like look at that ingredients list. It is horrifying. There's vegetable oil in there, there's maltodextrin, there's like all sorts of stuff to make it thick and delicious, and you know, things that are not good for you, and that's what's making you bloated. It's not necessarily the protein. So quality does go a long way, but protein powder, I would say on average is like 22 to 25 grams per scoop, which is incredibly efficient for you to get to your goal. I always tell people up to 2 scoops per day, no more than that. not because it's really harmful or anything, but because we need to focus on food. But if someone's low for the day and it's the end of the day and it's just easier to make yourself a shake or have a scoop of protein powder than, you know, cook up some chicken or whatever, like, I'm all for that. It's something that also gives you freedom and flexibility when it comes to eating. But you need to be having protein with every single meal, regardless of it's coming from a food source or from a supplement. What you cannot do by any means is not eat protein all day and then have like 5 scoops of protein powder at the end of the day. That is not okay. You will not feel okay. You know, at least I don't think you would. And that would be not the most palatable thing to consume. But you could mix it into things like your yogurt or your oatmeal, make a smoothie. You know, you can make little protein balls, whatever. You can do so much with it. There's a million recipes online. You know, you can make pancakes, all sorts of things. So from that point of view, I think protein powder is fantastic for just giving more people options. You know, I would say the majority of our clients will consume a protein powder at breakfast. I do as well. I have oatmeal with berries and stuff. I add that to it. Tastes like straight up chocolate. It's fantastic. But you know, I also like my protein powder. I've had people be like, this is disgusting in my oatmeal. It's like, well, you're using a soy protein powder that was $17 at the store. Like, anyone would think that's disgusting. So quality usually comes with taste. That's just kind of one thing I would say. You know, prices of protein powder definitely can be up there. If you're not into spending that for a high quality one, don't get a poor quality one. Just eat more protein through food. Like, you have 2 choices, unfortunately. Like, that's just kind of where we're at. But there's a lot of other brands out there to try and stuff. If you go on our Amazon store, if you find it, you can go on my Instagram bio. I have a whole section for protein powders, bars, and drinks. So anything in there is something I would be okay with you or a client consuming. So I think that could be a good place to look at if you're curious for a more extensive list of stuff.
And I just want to revisit your point from the beginning about third-party testing. Obviously, this applies to all supplements, which is why you brought up the beginning, but protein, because it's such a buzzword, it has been chopped up and kind of sold. It's, you know, at Costco and every corner store, like, there's bars you've never heard of now at gas stations. I think in particular with protein powder, there's some pretty famous studies around the amount of heavy metals, about the lack of actual protein. And we won't get into the specifics of like how they measure protein, but they use this nitrogen test to look at the nitrogen levels, which means there's ways to basically lie about the protein content, which is probably what you see in things like Cheerios that like say there's, you know, protein fortified. It's like, we don't actually know that there's that much protein in there. We just know that the nitrogen level seems like it has enough protein. And so I think of all of the supplements, it's a really important one to just spend the extra $10 and get the stuff that's actually going to deliver on what it says is in the bottle, which is a lot of the ones that we have on our store, because it's really easy to just go to Safeway or Costco and buy whatever, and it's super cheap, and just be careful with that. 40%, I think, was the level of metals. They tested like 40% of all the powders had heavy metals in it, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I think, you know, I'll have clients also like ask me about this, and it's just hard to say because I don't know exactly what is in what. Like, I can't possibly know all of that stuff. But if anything makes you uncomfortable and you're not okay with that, then do not consume it. Just, you have to try harder to get it through food. Like, you have plenty, million other options, and, you know, the choice is yours. But I would say most people benefit if you're trying to get enough protein by having something maybe a couple times a week when you need it. But I would love it if everyone tried to get it through food. You know, I think that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are some other honorable mentions that I'm not going to get into details about, but we do talk about or just electrolytes in general a lot. That is a supplement, and I think that's a really popular one. Just helps with hydration. So I think that is a good one for most people. I'm also a fan of glutamine. Like, L-glutamine really helps with gut integrity, the gut lining. If someone has like legit gut issues, I think glutamine can be very powerful. It's an amino acid. I used it myself for a large chunk of time when I had very serious gut issues, and it was very helpful. And I think a lot of people also see the same, especially when it's kind of like question mark, I'm bloated and gassy all the time, but I don't know why. Like, you could just have gut dysbiosis. Glutamine could be helpful there. And then magnesium glycinate also is really good, especially for, you know, women, high stress women, you know, perimenopause, menopause. But in general, I think magnesium, you know, people do well with it before going to bed, can help with restful sleep. But magnesium is one of the most depleted minerals in the body. It's involved in over 300 processes. your body eats that shit up. So if you just take a supplement, it can be really helpful. And going back to what I mentioned earlier about all the different forms, glycinate is probably the one you want because it's just more bioavailable and people see better results with that one.
Love it. Anything we missed?
No, I think we got a lot there. And I think if you're curious about any other topics or like niche things, let us know because this is something we could really get into. Because I know there's a lot going on, but know yourself, know what you need, and I think make informed choices from there and do your research.
I love it. I love it. Well, we have a guide put together, just like a simple resource of recapping some of the information we've dropped, I'm not going to say our favorite because we haven't tested them all. I think anyone who tells you that this supplement is best is like full of it because there's no way they've tried 1,400 different protein powders, but we have ones that we know are what they say they are, that we personally use, things like that. And so we have that in our resource. So reach out to either one of us. We'll give it to you, everyone in our Alta Life community, which you can find in the show notes. Shout out to our amazing Alta Life community on WhatsApp. And you can get more of Kat's knowledgeable brain on Instagram at KatBestWellness. And you can follow me at Andrew Hayes Life. Kat, any parting words?
Keep your fish oil in the fridge.
Don't eat rancid fish oil, please.
The worst.
And don't drink heavy metals. All right, we'll see you for the next one, everybody.
Bye, guys.